What's up, everybody? Welcome into Upon Further Review. I am your host, Phillip Jordan, in-studio host and producer of Dozen Woods Football, a 96.9 The Legend in Dozen, Alabama, and I'm also the Auburn writer for Last Word on college football. Happy Monday to everybody. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I did. Just watched a lot of sports, as per usual. Kind of rainy weekend here in the Wiregrass, particularly Saturday dinner day, then Sunday night in the evening. But nonetheless, it was an interesting weekend at that in sports. And we have a fun conversation for you here on this edition of the podcast. I have some evergreen content. This is an interview I've kind of been sitting on for a few months. I have yet to play for anybody in a podcast form. As I have told you guys before, I am going back to school. I am a student at Troy University. And in one of my classes, we had to interview somebody that was involved in what we're pursuing. Obviously, me pursuing sports media, sports radio, I wanted to interview this individual. And I'll be playing a 20-minute conversation with Doug Amos, who is the host of the Max Roundtable that's heard on ESPN The Ticket in the Montgomery area and also on ESPN 106.7 in the Auburn, Opelika area. Doug has been in the business for 40 years. He started out in print. He got into radio in 1993, has his own company now, Roundtable Broadcasting, does multiple podcasts, different radio shows. Of course, the Max Roundtable is up under that. So we get a good 20 minutes with Doug there. And we just touch on a lot of things, just starting, Roundtable Broadcasting. How did that come about? We talk about just getting started in sports media, early influences. He did a TV show here recently for a few years. We'll talk about that a little bit, and just doing the daily sports radio show. What does that entail? So, no, we're not breaking down stuff that's going on right now in sports, but this is a fun conversation, I think, to kind of do a soft launch with the newness that you're seeing here right now. So we're going to jump into that. I'm going to play that conversation for you with Doug, and then we'll talk about some other stuff after we get done with that. Joining me right now is Doug Amos. You can check him out every day, Monday through Friday, host of the Max Roundtable from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. over on ESPN The Ticket 107.5 FM and also ESPN 106.7 there in Auburn. And, of course, during the football season, many different shows Doug does. The Pig Enterprises Scoreboard Show for high school football on Friday nights, the Chappie's Daily Football Saturday on Saturday mornings, and then he's got Hawk Talk with Mike Turk and Patriot Talk with Coach Granger Shook, which is Pike Road. And Doug, I appreciate you doing this. I hope I listed all the stuff you're doing.
You did. I got tired just hearing it. It's football season is a long time for me. It's a lot of investment in time and lack of rest, but it's a passion that I have, and it's always fun, man. Great being with you tonight, Phillip.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you doing this interview. Appreciate you doing this. Really means a lot, and of course having you on to talk about how you got into sports media, broadcasting, just the path, the career path, and all that, and all the great words of wisdom you could pass along through that. But I kind of just want to start with something recently. The beginning of Roundtable Broadcasting. Of course, everything you do on the radio is under that umbrella. How did all that get started?
Well, I've had a few things that have changed over the last year. I did a TV show for about 2.5 years, had a great time with it on the Fox affiliate here, but I was getting up at 2 a.m. every day, and Phillip, quite frankly, I'm just too old for that, my friend. And so when I stepped away from that, I decided to try some new things. That's when I started the Football Saturday program, and we just needed an umbrella, needed something to oversee. So my little company has been kind of fledgling, but it's going stronger now. And like you said, everything that I do falls under it, whether it's hosting a show for a high school or producing a show for a college, or the shows that I are mine specifically. All of it falls under Roundtable Broadcasting, and I'm having a great time with it.
Yeah, you do an awesome job. I check some of the stuff out myself. Great stuff there with the football stuff, of course, with the radio show throughout the whole year. And to kind of just going from the beginning, what led you from the start wanting to be in sports media?
Well, I tell you, back in the day, and I'm talking about way back in the day, a lot of people in my era or in my generation literally felt like, your passion is your passion. That's your hobby. You got to go find a job, and that's where your career is and your work. Right out of college, I had a minor in communications, but had a business degree, and I actually was in the food and beverage business for a year and a half. Despised it. I mean, hated it. Lasted about 2 years, was in Birmingham, came home, and I went to see my high school basketball coach, Charles Lee, in the high school Hall of Fame, High School Athletics Hall of Fame here in the state of Alabama. And he just point blank asked me, this would have been in 1982, late 82, early 83, said, what are you passionate about? And I said, Coach, you know what I'm passionate about? And he said, well, we got to find you a job that equates to your passion and you'll never feel like you've worked. And I was part-time at the Montgomery Advertiser for 6 months, learned that industry through that, was a sports writer for 8 years, and then realized that the media part of it, the digital media, the radio, the broadcast media part of it was probably going to be a longer standing profession than the print media part of it. And so that's how I kind of got going. And I would say this, Phillip, just important things that go into it. First off, you better have a knowledge of it. If you're going to be in sports media, you better know what you're talking about. You better have a working, always trying to grow knowledge about your subject. If you're going to be in news, if you're going to be in politics, whatever, credibility is established by how much your listenership or viewership or readership trusts you in filling them in. And so that was the first thing that I knew I wanted to do, because I've always had a really good working knowledge of the athletics world.
You talked about, your time Montgomery Advertiser, then your broadcasting career, and reading up on your bio in 1993. When you look at that time then versus now, what are some of the big changes you've seen in the industry?
Well, back then, just the everyday working of it, how radio communications worked back then. Now, most radio people or broadcast people are into the podcast world too. Shows back then, my late co-host, Jim Fife, who I worked with for 10 years, he started the first sports radio show, and they were probably an hour for the first time. Sometimes they were just on Thursdays and Fridays. And, now, a show's 3 hours if it's a minute, and some are 4. And it's just become such a, what's the word? That, creativity has to be a part of things, even on the radio now. Back then, not so much. You just kind of flipped it on and talked to Auburn, Alabama, and everybody was there for it. But there's so many options now when it comes to sports talk, whether it be podcasts, whether it be live broadcasts. I got, not only am I do radio, but, I listen to a lot of Sirius XM. There's 8 or 9 sport 24/7 sports channels on there. So if you just sit on your laurels and you just think all you got to do is turn the mic on, then you're going to get left in the dust.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there too. They're just listeners, or just kind of an outsider's view. They look at it and say, okay, that's not a hard job. You just get up behind the radio and talk. I said, okay, go try and do it. That's, it's easy to say that, but then when you have to go do it, it's tough. Maybe on a football season, you could do Monday where you could say, okay, I'll just talk what happened on Saturday and Sunday, and then Friday previewing games. But what you going to do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? So it's a grind, and there's a lot of, I think a lot of people don't realize the work that goes into just getting ready for a show.
Well, I'll say this. Obviously, show content's important. The ability to communicate is much more important. And so I think before anybody really starts pursuing something, a career that I've been blessed to have, I've already talked about knowledge of the subject matter, but the other is the ability to communicate, the ability to carry on a conversation, the ability to interview, the ability to have fun, personality, sense of humor. There's so many facets that go into it. And I've done radio now for 30 years. I'm in my 31st year, 10 years basically in print media. And I still try to improve my communication skills every day of my career. So I think that's the cornerstone of being successful in this business.
Now, you talked about, obviously, you worked with Jim Fife early on in your radio career, and also you talked about your high school basketball coach. Outside of those guys, who were some early influences for you as you were kind of getting into the industry?
Well, Phillip was. He was the sports editor at the Montgomery Advertiser at the time. He covers Auburn now for Auburn Undercover, but he was a very well-known sports editor and sports writer back in the 80s. He took me under his wing. He taught me the art of sports writing, and there is an art to it, and that's where your communication skills develop. Anybody and everybody, Phillip, whether you think you want to be a broadcaster, a podcaster, a blogger, whatever, the written word has to be something you embrace. And Phillip took me under his wing and taught me all of that, and very grateful for his time. I would say in the radio industry, Al Stroh's the guy that I've worked with. He owns the radio station I currently work for. He was a big influence. Bill Cameron from over in Auburn is a guy that I worked with very early in my radio career. I have a lot of respect for what he's done. And a guy like Barry McKnight, who has done a lot of different things like I've tried to do. You see the ways of being versatile. I think versatility is very important when it comes to sports media. He's been able to do that, and I have a lot of respect for him as well.
Now, you mentioned early on in our conversation here about the TV show, the Score that you did there for the local Fox affiliate. And I was a subscriber to the YouTube channel. I checked it out via YouTube. But
Yeah.
What was the big difference there? Obviously, you've been in print media, you've done radio, but then going into television, what's like the big differences there?
Well, because I served as the producer director of the show as well. I was not just the host of the show. So I planned out the show minute by minute, segment by segment. I edited the video, timed it out, knew exactly how it was going to play out. So that's why I was getting up in the middle of the night, because the show aired from 6 to 7 live, and then, we put stuff on YouTube. But I literally would start from scratch and would plan out every single thing, segment by segment, minute by minute, for an hour show. You may think that's not that big a deal, but I'm kind of anal about these type things. So if my name's going to be on it, I'm going to do my best to make it clean and to make it, just a smooth running thing. And so it was challenging. I got to the point that I enjoyed it. If it had been able to be an afternoon show, like in afternoon drive instead of morning drive, I probably would still be doing it, quite frankly. But it just became a time restraint for me, and I had to make some tough decisions, and that was one of the ones I had to make.
And of course, with sports, there's stuff that happens the night before, so you've got to stay up and watch the game. If there's a really big game going on the night before, you want to talk about the next day, or of course on your radio show. Did that make it tough as well?
Yeah, because I was getting, 4 hours sleep, and it just took its toll. But yeah, I'm one of those guys that if I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to dadgum sure make sure that I have the knowledge of it, and I'm not just reading somebody else's account of it or watching a video clip that ESPN may have. Credibility. If you ask me what the most important word or the word that I embrace more than any other word in the 40 years I've done this, it's credibility. I literally lose sleep over making mistakes, or lose sleep over giving incorrect information, or not knowing exactly what is going on. So credibility for me is everything, and I take pride in it.
Oh, I'm 100% with you. As a guy that watches a lot of sports, I can kind of tell sometimes if I listen to somebody who I think is reading off something and didn't watch it, I will get a little bit on the agitated side, Doug. I ain't going
Yeah, I've never, even in the TV thing, I never used the teleprompter, refused to. I'm really going to just speak from my heart and what's on my mind. I'm never going to have a script. And that just, those kind of things bug me in live broadcasting. And that's why I love live radio. I love sports talk. I love things that just happen in real time instead of, feeding words into a teleprompter and reading the sportscast to people.
Yeah, kind of on the day-to-day, hosting a daily sports talk show, when you're going in and out, maybe a lot of stuff what people just don't see, what are some of those big challenges each day? Just getting ready, getting the show ready to make sure you do put on that really good show that you want to.
Well, what you don't want to do is lock yourself into things. You never want to have a second question if you're doing an interview. And I had Brian Passink on today, Alabama's color analyst on the Crimson Tide Sports Network after the game last night. Had Andy Burcham on the day before, along with Chris Stewart on the day before of the Auburn-Alabama game. I always know how I want an interview to start out, and then everything else after you start it is just flowing from what's been said. I've never, ever had a number of questions in front of me knowing I'm going to ask 2, 3, 4, and 5, because if that's where my mind is, then I'm not going to really listen to the answer to question 1. Because the answer to question 1 may send me in a totally different direction and a more interesting direction if I'm willing to be flexible. I also pride myself in, and I think anybody that does this should pride themselves in, especially in the state of Alabama. It would be real easy to talk college football 24/7, 365. I pride myself in touching on all subjects. I get texts all the time during my show. Thanks for talking about basketball. Thanks for mentioning the PGA Tour. Thanks for giving us insight into what you think is going to happen in the NFL and the playoffs. And I just try to be as well-rounded with sports topics on my show as I possibly can be.
And now, kind of flip side of that, best part of the job.
Best part or worst part?
The best part.
Best part of the job would be relationships. For me, everything in our walk on this earth should be about relationships, building them, enjoying them, relying on them, depending on them, helping other people that you've gotten to know. The many events that I get to go cover and be at and spend time at, SEC Media Days, SEC basketball tournament, other tournaments, other big events, seeing the people and just interacting 90% of the fun. The job comes along, and that's fun too, but just being in an industry that allows you to build relationships is pretty important to me.
Yeah, just for me, I did a little bit. I've done a little bit of radio, do high school football, but doing a podcast, that's my favorite part. Is the conversation you get to have. I mean, yeah, I may have an open where I talk about what happened during the weekend or, rant and rave over something I disagree with. But for me, the favorite part, and I think it's the best part, is just those conversations, like you said, meeting people, getting into what they like, what they see, and just having those conversations.
Relationships are one of the biggest gifts, best gifts we can have on this earth, man. Totally believe that.
And my final question, just advice. Anybody listening to this, checking this interview out, what are some advice you could give the people out there if they want to pursue this kind of career?
Like I said earlier, communication skills are key. Learning how to write, learning how to express yourself with the written word, that would translate into any and all broadcasting careers, whether it be athletics or news or anything else. Communication skills are the key. And then if you decide and when you decide what direction you want to go, develop as much knowledge on your subject matter as you possibly can. The listener, the viewer will not be fooled. They will know whether you are speaking from a position of knowledge, a position of strength, so to speak, or whether you're not. They'll be the first to know, and then they'll be the first to basically end things for you if they don't feel like you're to be trusted or trustworthy source of information.
Yeah, I really just feel like the sports fan is a lot more plugged in than maybe what they were, maybe even just 10 years ago.
No doubt. Absolutely no doubt. Totally agree with that.
And last thing, just for the podcast listeners out there, if they want to check you out, where can they find you?
Yeah, please do. My website is roundtablebroadcast.com. Broadcasting was not available, so roundtablebroadcast.com. Everything is streamed off of that website. Everything is archived on that website. Everything we've done since August is there. Every show we've done, we've had about 40,000 downloads of things that we've done through my company. My daily show is on from 11 to 2 on ESPN The Ticket and ESPN 106.7, like you said. You can stream it live on that website. And just like to have a lot of fun, Phillip, and invite anybody and everybody to be a part of what I do.
Oh, yeah, everybody go check it out. And Doug, appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Phillip.
96.9 The Legend is your connection to classic country legends. But Digio Strategies has other options too. News Talk 103.9 is your source for America's top news and entertainment shows, like Rick and Bubba in the morning, Glenn Beck from 9 till 11 a.m., and Clay Travis and Buck Sexton middays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and others fill your day with the latest news and views from America's top conservative voices. America at Night and Coast to Coast AM keep you company and connected throughout the night. Plus, Fox News, the Alabama Radio Network, and Wiregrass Daily News keep you informed with national, international, state, and local news. And with more musical choices like All the Hits, 106.7 KMX, Today's Country, 95.5 WTVY, and Music 107.7. Digio Strategies gives you more choices and more variety. Listen on air, online, and on our apps. 96.9 The Legend is just the beginning.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Doug Amos. As you can tell, he talked a little bit the Alabama-Auburn basketball game. That was back in January when we did that conversation. Outside of that, that's the only thing that was made the conversation dated. But I hope you enjoyed it, especially if you're interested in getting into broadcasting, sports media, writing, all that stuff. A lot of great stuff there by Doug. Last week on the show, we talked about SEC spring meetings were going on last week. Also talked about that some times were going to be announced on Thursday of some SEC first couple weeks. So we have the TV times and everything for the first 3 weeks for the SEC football season, and Troy announced theirs as well. But in week one, we'll get kicked off Thursday night. We have two games on Thursday night. Arkansas Pine Bluff will be at Arkansas. 6:30 on ESPNU. Murray State will be at Missouri at 7 o'clock on the SEC Network. On Friday, Temple will be at Oklahoma. So Oklahoma, they're officially in the conference now. We knew they were coming, obviously, but now they're officially official. They will play on Friday night, August 30th, and that will be at 6 o'clock on ESPN. And Saturday, the big one, we're going to get things kicked off. Clemson playing Georgia in Atlanta, 11 a.m. on ABC. Virginia Tech will be at Vanderbilt at 11 on ESPN. Chattanooga at Tennessee will be at 11:45 on the SEC Network. And it had seen some talk with Greg Sankey and other people affiliated with the SEC that they may stagger some times now. Now they're all under one umbrella, the ESPN family networks. They can do that now. So the SEC network games, those games would usually start, especially the first ones, at 11. Then you get a 3, then 6:30. Well, now they're kind of moving around time, so staggering the games a little bit. So if one of those 11 o'clock games isn't meeting your fancy, you can flip it over 11:45. Check out something on the SEC network. At 2:30, you'll have Colorado State at Texas. That will be on ESPN. Miami at Florida, 2:30 on ABC. Old Dominion at South Carolina, 3:15 on the SEC Network. Eastern Kentucky at Mississippi State, and a couple ESPN Plus games as well. That'll be 5 o'clock ESPN Plus. Furman at Ole Miss will be ESPN Plus as well, 6 o'clock on that. Western Kentucky will play at Alabama, so the Kalen DeBoer era will get underway there, 6 o'clock on ESPN. The big game day will be at this game, Notre Dame at Texas A&M, 6:30 on ABC. We're going to be seeing a lot of SEC on ABC with the new contract, with CBS no longer being part of the deal. Another ESPN Plus game, Auburn-related, Alabama A&M at Auburn, 6:30. Southern Miss will be at Kentucky at 6:45 on the SEC Network. And then on Sunday, September 1st, LSU is playing Big Ten's Southern California in Las Vegas, 6:30 on ABC. Now, I'm not going to go through every game in week 2 and 3, but some notable games from week 2. Arkansas at Oklahoma State, 11 o'clock ABC. We have Texas and Michigan also at 11 that day on Fox. Auburn will be hosting Cal, 2:30 on ESPN2. I was kind of hoping that Cal would have to play at 11 a.m. since Auburn had to go out there and play like a 9:30 game last year, kind of returned the favor, but obviously that's not Auburn's control. South Carolina will be at Kentucky. That will be the 2:30 ABC game. South Florida at Alabama. Remember, they played last year at South Florida. 6 o'clock ESPN. NC State at Tennessee and Charlotte will be at 6:30 on ABC. And there's some notable week 3 games to look for. Alabama at Wisconsin. That'll be 11 a.m. on Fox. Some of these games have been, announced prior to me giving this, but this is kind of like the full of everybody we know. LSU at South Carolina will be the 11 a.m. ABC game. Texas A&M at Florida, 2:30 on ABC. Auburn will play in New Mexico, not New Mexico State, New Mexico, 6:30. That will be ESPN2 or ESPNU on that one. And then Georgia will be at Kentucky, the 6:30 ABC game in week 3. And some other games that have been announced with some TV times throughout the rest of the season. On September 28th, Georgia will be at Alabama, 6:30 ABC. On the 12th of October, the Texas-Oklahoma game in Dallas, 2:30, will be either ABC or ESPN, probably depending on how good these two teams are doing, if they get on ABC or not. Florida, Georgia, the game in Jacksonville, not on CBS, obviously, but still has that 2:30 time slot, ABC. And there's something new. We will not be getting Arkansas and Missouri on the day after Thanksgiving on that Friday. Yes, I am so happy about that. Mississippi State and Ole Miss will get the Egg Bowl the day after Thanksgiving, 2:30 on ABC. And then also on that Friday, Georgia Tech and Georgia, 6:30 on ABC. And I'm just going to take a shot at this. I'm pretty sure we'll get Alabama and Auburn. We'll still be in the 2:30 spot. I bet it'll be on ABC. I'm just going to go ahead and call that for this season. And, of course, here in the Wiregrass, we're close to Troy Trojans. They have announced 6 of their games will be televised. Their season opener against Nevada on the 31st of August, 6 o'clock on ESPN Plus. On September 7th, when they travel at Memphis, 11 a.m. on ESPNU. On the 14th of September at Iowa, 3 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. On the 21st of September against Florida A&M, 6 o'clock, another ESPN Plus game. And then some games that will be played during the week, during the season. Texas State, that'll be a Thursday night game. Yours truly is planning on going. 6:30 ESPNU, October 3rd, and then October 15th will be a Tuesday game at South Alabama, the annual rivalry game. South Alabama, they will be playing that game 6:30 on ESPN2. So when Troy travels Mobile, they will be playing on a Tuesday night. And that's going to do it for this edition of Upon Further Review. Be back on Wednesday, and I'm going to be joined by an Alabama writer / podcaster to talk about the title. We're going to start our previews, getting ready for the college football season here on Upon Further Review. And we got some fun stuff coming your way on Friday. And actually, this week, I'm going to go ahead and record next Monday's show. So Monday, we're rolling. We're rolling here 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And, of course, Upon Further Review. Okay, so I wasn't really going to talk about it. I guess I can close the show talking about this. You say, well, Phillip, you were doing the Southeast College Football Report. What happened? I did it for 2 weeks, and it felt too similar to what I'm doing with Wiregrass High School Football Report. I want the shows to feel like a different feel, be different. And it felt like I was doing the same thing as doing the Phil Jordan show. And we're doing something different, and just something brand new. I'm reinvigorated with this. I'm excited. We'll be more video-based on this show versus what I have been done in the past. Audio has always been the top priority. Now we're video. We're going to be putting these videos out on Facebook, Twitter, or X, YouTube, wherever I can put it, on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 o'clock. Of course, you can listen to the podcast. There will be a link there where you can go find the audio podcast. But I am more concerned with the video numbers, getting the videos up, because that will bring more attention. And then people will go listen to the audio podcast. They'll go find it if they want to. So that's the short answer if you had that question. But anyways, I'm going to get out of here. And most of the shows will go this length, 30 to 35 minutes. A guest, and just depending on how long me and the guest go, then we'll jump into some stuff like you heard there. Now, if me and the guest go 25, between 25 and 30, probably won't be a new segment. It'll just be that part of the show. And we're going to do some more fun interviews here too as well. For, coaches, players, former coaches, stuff like that. I'm going to be reaching out, and so I'm going to attempt to get some of the big names that cover the sports we enjoy. So stay tuned here on the show. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here. And if you want the audio podcast, it's on all the platforms. You know how to find it. Look up Upon Further Review with Phillip Jordan. Now, there's a lot of Upon Further Reviews. This is not an original idea name for me, but I really like the name. But make sure to just if you put in Upon Further Review Phillip Jordan, you'll find the show. So go do that. Find me on YouTube on the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications. And please leave a comment on the videos, and I'll read those as well. The videos will be up on my Facebook page, Phillip Jordan Sports, also on the Wiregrass Daily News Facebook page as well. So plenty of places to find, to watch the show, to listen to the show. And I just really appreciate it if you would share it. That's another thing. That is very important to what I'm doing here. You sharing it. I'm very appreciative of it. But if you share the show, whether you're seeing the audio link or if you're seeing the video link, please share it, because word of mouth is the best way people will find out what I'm doing. And I really appreciate that. But anyways, that's all the public service announcements for the show. We'll again be back on Wednesday morning with another great interview, another great show, talking these things we love to talk about. And I hope you have a great start to your week. It is Monday. Let's make a positive out of this week. I know a lot of people don't like Mondays, but let's be positive going into this week. And we'll have something fun to do and listen to on Hump Day. Until then, bye-bye.